Welcome to another movie plot and enjoy the memories. It begins with a series of photos depicting a Romanian migration to America and the 150 years that followed. As they built the railroads, they moved across the west, and in 1881 Newton Pyles arrives by carriage to one of the sleepy little towns along the way. Deliverance is yet to receive a railroad, but Newton's been dispatched as an investigative reporter to get a story about the Wild West. He's quickly disappointed to learn from their mayor Holden that not much ever happens in their quiet town and everyone's been relatively safe until now. On the edge of Deliverance, Vince and his wife Bernadette have just finished supper when hearing a noise outside and assuming that it's just a bear. Vince goes out with his loaded shotgun, but after a few minutes of not responding to her calls, Bernie goes to check on him while the boys hide under their bed. Their parents never return, and instead a stranger wearing all black enters and starts talking to the boys while making himself at home. The vampire leader Billy the Kid tells them not to be scared and that they'll soon join their parents as his blood-sucking posse rounds them up. The next night, the barmaid Martha's just finished her shift at the saloon, so bartender Bob suggests that she check on her kids while the drunk Sheriff Cobden's sent home. Martha's daughters are woken by a vampire at their bedroom window, and when their mother enters, she's suddenly grabbed from behind by the posse. They carry them all outside to where Billy's begun his takeover of Deliverance, and when he refuses Cobden's order to release the children, the sheriff opens fire. The bullets go straight through Billy as he advances on the sheriff and bites him, so the mayor surrenders the town to the vampires along with his personal residents. They let Newton live to follow them around and document their takeover, while the rest are kept around as a food source and the children for leverage. Some time later, Vince and Bernadette's half-vampire friend Rayne comes calling, only to find them lying dead in the garden with the kids missing. After moving to America over 100 years ago as the sole survivor of a society of vampire hunters called Brimstone, Rayne has spent her time slaying vampires with a pair of forearm blades and meets a local man named Pat Garrett who apparently saw the whole thing. He tells her about the kids being taken to Deliverance, so Rayne rides into town only to be met by the now vampire Sheriff Cobden and his two blood-sucking deputies. They warn her not to use her guns in town and send her to the saloon to find employment, which is now known as the Pit. She encounters an old adversary inside, Flintlock Hogan, who's now a vampire himself and lacks any reflection, so she joins his poker game with a few of his friends. When Rayne takes all of their money, fights break out, so Hogan suggests they take it outside, not knowing about Rayne's history of killing his kind. They have a quick standoff, but when he's shot, Hogan falls to the ground and begins to disintegrate due to her bullets being infused with holy water and garlic. Hogan's friends Kentucky and Irish Mick attempt to pull on her, but Rayne destroys both of the vampire lackeys before Sheriff Cobden can arrive. He and his deputies knock Rayne unconscious, and she wakes up in a jail cell waiting to be hung at midnight for the crime of causing a ruckus. She receives a visit from Newton, who wants to interview her for his paper, but Rayne's more interested in finding out about Billy and his plot. She meets a guy in the next cell who turns out to be part of the Brimstone Society of Vampire Hunters and has been following Billy ever since Cheyenne. Muller divulges the plan to use the railroad to send vampire cowboys across the country and reveals that Billy's actually several hundred years old and doesn't require blood to heal, unlike other vampires. He uses Newton's glasses to pick Rayne's handcuffs, but they don't have time to escape as the vampires arrive to take Muller out to be hanged in front of the townspeople. He dies, and when it's Rayne's turn, she's led to the gallows and read her charges by the mayor, who, like everyone else, is just too terrified to go against Billy. At the last moment, Rayne slips her cuffs and cuts the rope before receiving her swords from Bob, who said he traded the vampires a bottle of whiskey for them earlier. She slices the sheriff's throat and leaps into a river to avoid the posse's gunfire before being found downriver by Garrett with a few stray bullets in her. He takes her to safety and reveals that he's actually a vampire hunter who burned down the Deliverance train station to prevent Billy's expansion across the west, but that Bob was also killed as a result of helping. Rayne reveals that she's a half-vampire called a Dampier, which allows her to walk around in sunlight, but she's still going to need blood to heal her wounds. Garrett willingly slices his arm and allows her to feed on him, rejuvenating Rayne completely and preparing her to go after Billy again. The cowboy suggests that they get a posse together first, so they begin going around collecting vampire hunters like a man called the Preacher. He's a wanted criminal who takes money from old religious repentance and thinks that Rayne and Garrett are there to arrest him. He's about to draw a small derringer hidden inside his Bible when Rayne says they plan to eradicate the vampires from the land, so he happily joins the hunt. Next, they find the gunman for hire known as Slimebag Franson, so Rayne sneaks into his room pretending to be one of his saloon girls. She makes him at gunpoint agree to assist them in slaying the vampires and then rewards his loyalty by showing him a good time. Come nightfall, the four pledge their allegiance to the Brimstone Society and receive their pendants before loading up on garlic bullets blessed by the Preacher. The vampire hunters ride into Deliverance to find the streets empty, while the townsfolk still trying to come up with a plan for escape watch safely from inside the saloon. Without any response, the Preacher sets the stables on fire to call out the vampires, and when the clock strikes midnight, the group are ambushed by Billy's posse. While the rest of the hunters remain outside to hold them off, Rayne goes searching for the town's children and hears them crying in one of the buildings. She kills her way to the room but is forced to catch a weighted contraption connected to nooses around the children's necks to prevent it from hanging them. Billy's waiting to laugh at her struggling before drinking the blood from one of the children as Rayne's unable to do anything but watch. In the saloon, Newton chastises the mayor and townspeople for sitting by idle while the hunters risk their lives to save Martha's and everyone else's children. Slimebag and the preacher are cornered in a barn by Billy's vampire army and plan to go out on their shields, but a man on a minigun mows them down. The preacher survives and manages to put a bullet in the mounted gunman's brain, but he's shot down in the middle of the street outside of the saloon. Just then Newton's speech inspires the mayor to pick up his gun and join the fight, but he's instantly shot dead, so the reporter runs back inside. The dying preacher then pulls a blade from his crucifix and sticks it in a vampire's heart as a final defiance before another approaches and shoots the holy man dead. Once again, with Newton daring the townspeople to take up arms, Martha grabs her boomstick and goes outside alone to shoot the vampire dead that killed preacher. As Billy boasts about Deliverance being his pantry, Rayne drops the weight and in one fell swoop slices all of the ropes, simultaneously freeing the children. She and Billy have a duel with their swords that takes them out into the streets of Deliverance, where the townspeople come outside and watch from the saloon. A near victorious Billy brags about how they'll all watch their children be bled, but when he charges at Rayne, she manages to break the tips off his swords. Just when he's defeated, Billy pulls out his guns against his rules of a fair fight, but before he can shoot Rayne, he's lit up by Garrett with a Gatling gun. He's unable to heal himself before Rayne finishes him off with a wooden stake through the heart, and Billy the kid killer slowly shrivels up into a giant prune. Martha and the other parents are finally reunited with their children, while Deliverance and the rest of America is saved from the vampire menace. The next morning, Mayor Newton talks about how great the story's going to be while Rayne prepares to head for Tombstone for her next mission. She says that Wyatt Earp's having problems with a gang of vampires, so Garrett offers to help her slay them while Rayne rides off to go hunting. And the movie ends.